You really have to have passion about fishing if you want to be a better fisherman. I think you really have to put a lot of effort into it. It's like anything else. If you want to be good at your job, if you want to be good at sports, anything you want to be good at, I think you really have to work hard at it. And fishing's no different. I caught Sharelunker 573 on March 11th of this year. That was the biggest one I've ever caught. I caught it on Lake Fork, which I consider to be my home lake. If you really want to catch a Sharelunker, if that's really a goal of yours, like it's been of mine, there's a lot of preparation that goes into catching a fish like that.
Alex's journey to landing the fish of a lifetime began years ago in Franklin, Kentucky, where he first picked up a rod at the age of 4. He came to Lake Fork in December of 2012, where over the years, he developed a knack for catching big fish. A lot of them on baits he designed and built himself, which prompted him to start his own bait company in 2013. The journey is rarely easy for anglers like Alex, who must dedicate countless hours to realizing their dream.
I spent Thanksgivings at Lake Fork. I spent Christmases at Lake Fork. I spent New Year's at Lake Fork. In college, the entire time I was in college, I always camped out everywhere that I went. And I can remember when I first started coming to Fork, probably for the first year that I was at Lake Fork, I always slept in my truck. I always slept in my truck or camped out. I think that's just one of the sacrifices I made so I could have more time on the lake. Hi, I'm Alex Finch. I caught Sharelunker number 573, AKA Miss Nasty. The morning of March 11th, I almost didn't go fishing. I started that morning, woke up on time to go fishing, and the weather was really bad. Wind was blowing really hard, raining a lot, and I didn't know if I really wanted to go out and spend my day in that kind of weather. I got up around 8 o'clock. And I went over to the store that was at the hotel I was staying at the Minnebucket Marina on Lake Fork, grabbed some breakfast, was really still kind of unsure if I was going to go fishing or not. There had been a lot of big fish caught on Fork the last couple days. I think they'd had 2 over 13 in the last 8 days. So, we knew there was a lot of big ones, and that really kind of was driving a lot of people to come out on the lake. After breakfast, I kind of was still thinking about it and decided to go over to my boat and retie lures for the next weekend, just in case I decided not to go. And whenever I made that decision to go was really a sign of God. The wind stopped blowing for a little bit around me. The sun came out for a minute, and I thought, this really isn't bad weather. It's just, there's still a little bit of wind, but there's no rain. So I'm going to go ahead and go fishing today. So I dropped my boat in the lake around 10:30 that morning. I wanted to go fish a different area of the lake than where I've been fishing. If you really want to catch a Sharelunker, you need to be first you need to be in the right place. It's just, there's some places where it's just not possible to catch fish of that size. Lake Fork, it's the mecca of catching 13-pounders in Texas. If you really want to catch a 13-pounder, you need to come to Lake Fork a few times.
Completed in 1980, Lake Fork quickly became the premier largemouth bass fishery in the state of Texas, as well as one of the top fisheries in the entire world. 30 of the top 50 biggest bass ever caught in the state have come from Lake Fork, including the 2 most recent state records. It continues to outperform other lakes when it comes to trophy bass, which is why avid anglers like Alex spend most of their time there. As of 2018, Fork has produced 260 Sharelunkers in just over 30 years. The next most productive Sharelunker lake? Just 27. An incredible disparity. During its construction, the Texas Parks and Wildlife Department, who oversee fishing in Texas, used it as a sort of proving ground for innovative fishery management that was based heavily on an expanding knowledge of genetics. This would propel bass fishing in Texas to incredible heights and pave the way for the Sharelunker program, which began in 1986.
You know, I have one of the best jobs in the world, I say, because I get to talk about fishing all week and breathe it through my job, and then also on the weekends and when I have my free time, I do the same thing. So, my name's Kyle Brookshire. I'm the Toyota Sharelunker Program Coordinator for Texas Parks and Wildlife. The Fork, from the very beginning, was managed to be, you know, a lunker producing lake, you know, to produce world-class bass, and so I think that's a huge piece of it. Management is huge when it comes to fisheries like this. It's pretty cool to see moments like this. I mean, I've never caught a 13-pounder. My hope is to one day, but just to see the excitement, the joy, and the lifelong accomplishment checked off the bucket list, every angler, it's an awesome job because, you know, most jobs people have negative moments where it takes up most of their day, but I get to go and see, you know, the highest highs in an angler's life, so it's pretty cool.
Along the way, I could see a bank that looked really, really good. It wasn't too exposed to the wind, but it had a little bit of wind rolling through there. So I felt like I'd be able to fish there if I wanted to. So I'd seen this area that I wanted to see, and I really didn't like it. So you know, it's time to go somewhere else. So as I'm running back up the lake, you know, there were all these spots that I was passing by that I said, you know, I fished there before. I like that spot. That's a good spot. And I ended up deciding that I would go back to that spot that I had looked at and that I'd seen on the way up. And that was just really, really sitting with me. And there's really not a lot of spots that sit that way with me. You know, I fish Lake Fork all the time. And but that spot, you know, that day just seemed like it was a really good place to fish. I pull up on this bank, and you know, again, it's got a little bit of wind rolling through there, but it's not too bad. And I pull out my favorite lure, the lure that I've been having tremendous success on for weeks on Lake Fork. I had actually caught a 936 the week before.
Oh, man, that's a big one. It's a giant. Where's the net? Where's the net?
The Nasty Thumper bladed fishing jig is one of the best. It's one of the best baits you can have tied on. I think every day I was going out with 3 of them tied on, and I just changed the colors based on the area that I was in.
Bass! My bait looks like an ant next to this fish.
So when I pull up on this bank, probably one of the first casts I made, I got a bite, and I didn't stay hooked up with the fish. I don't know why. Maybe it just barely got it, but I missed it. And so I decided I would go to the right from that spot because, you know, the fish had bit straight on. So I decided I'd go to the right and then maybe come back if I didn't get any more bites. Well, I didn't get any more bites. And I went probably 40 or 50 yards to the right and didn't get any bites. So I came back, and probably as soon as my boat was lined up with the spot where I'd gotten the bite before, I made a really long cast, and that's when the Sharelunker bit. And having caught a 936 the week before, you know, I had a pretty good feel for what a big fish felt like, and this one felt like a big fish. The fish jumps way far out. I mean, maybe 30 yards out, this fish jumps. And that was when I knew, like, you know, this is another big fish. This might be another 9-pounder. And I get the fish's head turned, and the fish is coming towards the boat really fast. You know, throw everything out the window, what you've heard about fish in cold water. This fish didn't have those tendencies. This fish was extremely strong. It had a lot of fight. It jumped a lot. It was everything that you've probably dreamt of whenever you've dreamt of catching a 13-pounder. This was just a really awesome battle. You know, this fish comes running straight at the boat, and when she gets next to the boat, she makes another jump. And I still think that fish might be over 9 pounds. I think it might be over 10 pounds, but I don't know how big this fish is. And so I was really scared I was going to get broke off by the fish at that point. and I clicked the thumb bar on my reel, and you can control your drag. You can control how much line you're letting out whenever you've got your thumb on there and how much pressure you're putting on it. So really the only way that this fish was going to break me off was to get me in some stumps or a tree. I did get the fish turned around, and the fish started to kind of swim away from my Phoenix. And she, as she was swimming out, I decided I would make a grab for the net. I couldn't get the net out. I don't know if I was nervous or if, let's just put it this way: if you're fishing on a lake like Lake Fork, you should have your net out before you hook into a Sharelunker. The fish was coming up again, and it was going to make another jump, and I knew that I was about to lose the fish if I didn't keep pressure on it. So, whenever I knew that fish was going to jump again, I just gave up on the net, and I said, 100%, this is going to be man versus nature, and let's hope man wins. And the fish made a jump, kept the pressure, and got her turned around again, coming back to the boat. And I think at this time, I think she was really starting to get tired. She had already made a big dive under the boat, a big run towards the boat, a big run away from the boat. She had run in every direction she could run, and I really kept pressure on her the whole way. So she was starting to get tired, and my Sharelunker, she kind of came right up next to the boat. Mouth was wide open, and at that point, you were looking at a giant fish, and I can see my thumper just barely sticking out of her mouth. I've got the hook all the way through, but it's just shaking while she's shaking her head. At that point, she didn't have the energy to swim. She was just going to try to shake me loose, and I kept the pressure on the fish, and I reached down there and grabbed it with one hand, and I've got my rod in the other hand, and I couldn't lift the fish out of the water. It was a big fish. So I set the rod down, and I go back and take my other hand and grab the fish from underneath, and I pull it into the boat. And at that point, I knew I had a big one. One thing I noticed about this fish was that she had just really amazing girth. And of course she was really long. I pull out my hand scale, and I get a weight on this fish. And the first time I weigh this fish, it says 12.92.
There's just one requirement for entry into the highest, most prestigious level of the Sharelunker program, and that's that the bass must weigh at least 13 pounds.
I wanted to get one more weight on it because I knew I was really close to that Sharelunker. And the Sharelunker's always been a goal of mine. I've always wanted to catch a Sharelunker since the first time I put my boat in Lake Fork. That's what I wanted. I wanted to catch a fish over 13 pounds. That's the measure the state has set as success. What I ended up doing is reset my scale after I calmed down a little bit, and weighed it again. It said 13.00. When I got to the minnow bucket, they had a bunch of people there already that had heard about the fish, and everybody wanted to see how big is this fish. There had been a lot of big ones being caught on Fork, so there's a lot of excitement around the lake. And I reached down in the live well and just pull out this really big fish I just caught.
Awesome. You good? Go ahead.
And that was a really exciting moment for me, but nowhere near as exciting as when I put it on the scale and it read 13.06 pounds. After my fish was certified at the minnow bucket, we talked to the Sharelunker team that's located in Athens, Texas, which is about an hour away from Lake Fork.
Kyle Brookshire and his team are on call 24/7 during the Sharelunker season. When the team gets word that a potential Sharelunker has been caught by an angler willing to donate it to the program, they immediately spring into action.
First thing we do after we get that information initially from the angler, like Alex, we'll do some research, find the closest weigh station, maybe the closest person who could respond. and get an official certified weight on it if there's not a weigh station available, and then we'll dispatch somebody in that direction. The best thing is you can remember is handle the fish as little as possible, keep it in the water as much as possible. So after you land the fish, try to get it into the live well, and then call us. If you have the ability to weigh the fish before and you think it is over 13, then that's great. You can weigh it, but obviously we don't want to take a lot of pictures or take a lot of time weighing it.
You know, I'd really like to thank everyone who was really respectful of my wishes to kind of leave the fish in the tank until the Sharelunker team got there. That was really important to me. I just really didn't want to handle the fish very much. You know, you don't want to stress out a fish that big. Your ultimate goal is to get that fish back into the lake. When the Sharelunker folks got here, they got here about an hour, maybe an hour and a half after we had notified them. They came into the room that they have set aside, so they hold Sharelunkers in the minnow tanks until the Sharelunker team gets here. And when they got here, the first thing they do is they go make sure the scale's certified. They don't look at the fish until everything's ready for transport. So they have their own bag that you transport the fish from the tank to the truck in. It's just it's a really smooth process. You fill out forms, you know, stating that you're loaning the fish to the state. The next day or two was just completely hectic. It's I'm sure it's just a small scale of what a Bassmaster Classic winner experiences, but you know, I got a lot of calls from outdoor sports writers. It was a really awesome experience just getting to talk to these people about the fish, getting to tell them my story. You know, I've got a really long story of working hard, and when you really want something, then you put everything you got into it.
Once the weight of the fish has been certified, Kyle and his team immediately transport the fish to its new home in Athens, Texas. The Texas Freshwater Fisheries Center, home to the Lunker Bunker.